Hello everyone, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk and from unboxings.com, and here I have the brand new HTC HD Mini, one of the new handsets from HTC that was announced back in February actually at MWC. So I'm going to take a quick look at what's inside, and then we're going to take a look at the handset in a bit more detail. So the handset sits immediately on top, as is pretty much the standard, and it's pretty small, but we'll come back to that in a second. We have a battery which is listed at 1200 milliamp hours, so not a bad capacity for a small battery and small device. Also in the box we have Contact Us for HTC. We have Copilot Live and its information about the 15-day trial navigation. Quick Start Guide, which is just a fairly small booklet about the basics. Regulatory guide and safety information, and the warranty statement, which is probably the largest out of all of the bits and pieces in there. There's also information about the Microsoft Windows Phone synchronization bits and pieces there as well. There's a sticker. There is a smart accessories leaflet. That's about all for those bits and pieces. I won't open this up just now because, well, you can see what it is. It's a 3-pin UK plug. We then have, don't know what this is, let's just open this up. It's the other half of that wall charger. So this is the actual adapter part, if you like, with a standard USB socket on the top, and that plugs into the 3-pin plug. We then have a USB, standard USB there, to micro USB sync and charge connector, obviously for hooking up to your computer and then charging also. And then finally we have the headphones or headset, which we'll just take a look at. So it's a 4-pole 3.5mm jack, standard, and then obviously a set length of cable, and then there's this inline microphone with a push button, obviously HTC branded there, as you can see. And then the headphones, these aren't exactly like the other HTC headphones that I've seen in the past. These are slightly different. I'm sure they're okay for use as a headset, but I think if you're going to listen to a lot of music, videos and that sort of stuff, you probably want to use your own headphones rather than a headset. That's all there is in the box. The box design, well, is pretty typical of HTC. They seem to follow this standard quite well at the moment, and most of their devices do ship this way. So let's take a look at the handset itself. I'll just peel off the plastic covering. Now, first of all, we have a 3.2-inch display, which is half VGA, so 320 by 480 pixels. It is capacitive, and it runs Windows Mobile 6.5.3. Also uses HTC's an implementation of HTC's Sense user interface. Below that we have 5 keys, although they are touch sensitive buttons, if you like. So we have the answer button, home button, Windows, back, and hang up button. Fairly sort of standard, really. You'll notice it isn't the typical 3 that we're expecting from the Windows Phone 7 series or Windows Phone 7, depending on whether or not they do drop that series tag. That is expected to have just 3 buttons. This has 5. Over on the left hand side we have an up and down volume control rocker, which is pretty straightforward, and on the bottom we have a micro USB sync charge connector, and also a hole there which we expect to be probably just the microphone. Nothing at all to see on the right hand side, but it does allow you to see just how slim it is. I think it perhaps looks a little bit thicker than reality, if you like. I think it's because of its proportions, but it is quite a thin handset. On the top we have the power button, and we have the 3.5mm headphone connector on the top also, which is again pretty straightforward. On the back then we have a 5-megapixel autofocus camera. There is no flash though, as you can see there, but we do have next to that a large grille, which is the loudspeaker, and also quite an attractive HTC logo on the back, and with HTC Sense just on the bottom. Now the screws on the outside are actually physical screws, they're not dummies. As HTC explained to me about a month ago, that is actually the physically what holds the device together. So that is actually part of the actual design physically. Now the back cover, a little bit tricky to remove, so let's try and do that. There we go. The whole of the back piece there, as you can see, is the back battery cover and back cover, and so it makes it a little bit tricky to remove. You kind of have to hold the whole thing in your hand and just peel it back off. Now underneath, hidden beauty or hidden depths, whatever you want to call it, but HTC have made the HD Mini pretty on the inside too, so that's just a little bit different. I wonder if it's just a matter of time before we see anybody sort of kind of bootlegging these clear back covers. It is probably worth mentioning also that the back cover does contain the antenna that is required to actually make the handset work, and the reason for doing that is because put it right on the outside where it's plastic, no metal components or anything else, reduces the interference to a minimum, also sort of obviously therefore improves the actual reception quality, so it's pretty cool. So we have a space here for a micro SD memory card supporting SDHC up to 32 gig, and then obviously the SIM card goes in this space just here, and then the battery pops in like so. That's you probably understand now why the battery is also yellow, and that it all goes back together like so, and is quite neat and tidy and fits quite well. So let me just power up, and while I do that and while we wait for it to start up, let me just run down the rest of the specification. So first of all, I'll reiterate that it is Windows Mobile 6.5.3, which is the latest available incarnation of Windows Mobile, probably the last before we actually do end up with Windows Phone series. It has a 600 MHz processor, 512 MB of ROM, and 384 MB of RAM. And as I say, it does include HTC's Sense user interface, which we're going to look at in a bit more detail in just a moment. This particular one is SIM-free, and it comes courtesy of our friends over at Clove Technology, and I think it's one of the first retail boxes that you're likely to see, so hopefully we're one of the first to actually get a retail package, which is pretty cool. 3.2-inch display is half VGA 320 by 480 pixels. It is quad band for GSM and dual band for HSDPA, so it's going to pretty much work wherever you take it throughout the world. When you're on holiday, when you're roaming and stuff like that, it should pretty much work. It has a G sensor, proximity sensor, and ambient light sensor, which again, pretty standard these days, but it does include them. Bluetooth 2.1 with EDR support, and also A2DP and various other sort of standards associated. Micro USB on the bottom supports USB 2.0. It does have built-in Wi-Fi supporting 802.11b and G, and has an internal GPS antenna. So it supports HTC footprints and obviously geotagging and all that sort of stuff, so that's pretty cool. So enough of the actual specification, let's take a look at what the handset does offer. So first of all, it's asking me to insert a SIM card. I'm going to not do that right now. I'm going to skip that part. And it can tell me about using the on-screen keyboard. About syncing data, well, we're going to automatically sync data. We're just going to go next through this, and we're going to connect to a Wi-Fi network. Yes, we are. So while it detects that, let me go ahead and put in my web key. Okay, and we've just joined that network. That's pretty cool, pretty straightforward. Google location, well, I'm going to allow it to know my location, and it's going to let me synchronize, set up my synchronization of mail. I'm going to just skip that process for the time being, and then it's going to let me set up Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. I'm going to skip through that, and setting the current time, well, hopefully that will detect through the internet, but we'll just wait and see. Oh, it hasn't done, so we're just going to, again, I'm just going to skip that for now because I don't really care about the local time just at the moment, so that's pretty cool. Now, this may look fairly familiar, especially with the sort of desktop. It's kind of similar to the Android handsets in terms of the look, so it's fairly similar to what they've done with their other handsets recently, and it's also fairly similar to the update that has been made to the HTC Touch Pro 2 and obviously the HD2 itself. With the items along the bottom, so we have obviously the time, call history and calendar just underneath, and the backlight's just timed out. So we can go to the next tab. The next tab is people. effectively kind of like a speed dial area where we can add our favourites, and we have space for, well, looks like about 12 or 18 or even more actually. That's just scrolling on and on, so we have plenty of room for our favourites. So I guess we put our favourites at the top and all the rest kind of further on. So pretty cool that we can have plenty of space though. Next to that we have messages, which is really talking about SMS and text messages. Obviously we don't have any just yet because just set up the phone. Then we have email. Our email accounts would be accessed through here, and it would actually give me a preview of any email messages that I have in my inbox. Will actually be listed there. Next we have the internet. Underneath we have the favourites and the browser there. We'll come back to the browser in just a moment. Calendar, again nicely laid out and very similar to the calendar arrangement that we see on the Android handsets that obviously Google are producing, so there's a similarity there. And I personally like to have a large calendar with the full month, pretty handy. Next is stocks. Sadly I don't own any stocks, but well then again perhaps it's a good thing with the way the stock market is, but obviously I have our stocks there, so if you want to follow those obviously you can do so. I think a lot of people will probably just remove this tab if you like, but we can do that later. I'll show you how to do that. Photos and video. Well, there's a series of videos on here, or photos I should say, that are part of the ROM build that just kind of show off what the handset can do, and we can just pop into those. As you can see there, that's displayed on screen. The screen is really rather nice. It is obviously, I say only half VGA. I'm used to WVGA, but it works quite well, and it is quite a generous colour and fairly crisp and vibrant. Next we have music. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory, and as always HTC have provided us with a couple of tracks there just to play with, and that plays well, and that is pretty loud. I don't know what the volume level is there. Well, in actual fact that's pretty loud. I think that's loud enough to have it sitting on your desk and just kind of using for casual music playback if you like. It's slightly tinny, but then it is just a small built-in loudspeaker. You wouldn't expect to get a great deal of bass out of it, and you don't, but you know, that's to be expected. We then have weather. It's saying that we don't have any weather available for my current location, probably because at the moment it just doesn't know where I am. So then we have weather, and again it's pretty familiar. HTC pretty much pioneered this sort of weather arrangement on earlier handsets, and the HD Mini is no different. We go to Twitter. Twitter there is provided as a feed. We have Peep also installed if you like, so we can set that up, and we'll do so later. We then have footprints. Anybody that's used footprints before, well, this is pretty much the same as you're going to see on any other HTC device, but footprints is provided there should you wish to use it. And then finally, I think this is our final tab, yes, is settings. So settings, well, covers all the settings you could probably want to do. So personalize, we can set wallpaper, wireless control, sound display, data services, location, security, application, SD card, lots, date and time, local, about the phone, and lots of other bits and pieces really. If we scroll right back to the top, we have personalize, and what we can do in personalize is we can personalize the home tabs and the home screen tabs, and in here we can actually change the order that they appear, and I can turn off stocks, for example. I don't want to see stocks, and I don't personally use footprints, so I'm going to just turn both of those off, click done, and it goes away. It kind of resets, relaunches HTC Sense, and once I've done that, I scroll along the bottom, I no longer have the footprints and I no longer have stocks, so they're both gone. So it's pretty cool, pretty useful, and again, as I say, you can actually change the order that they actually do appear, which is useful if you find yourself using the things over on this side. You can move everything over and you can access it a lot more easily. At the bottom we have the phone button, which gets into the phone dialer, and as it is a capacitive touchscreen, it's extremely sensitive. It actually does make a huge difference, and it's kind of strange in a way to use a Windows mobile device with a touchscreen. Now I appreciate that the HD2 was also a capacitive touchscreen, but you just kind of get used to the fact that Windows Mobile needed sort of more of a stab with a fingernail or a stylus, but there's none of that here. Touchscreen is extremely sensitive and works really rather well. We'll come back out of there. We can do that by pressing the home button, and we can also get into the dialer by just pressing the sort of dial, or the, well, up handset button if you like, or send button as many people refer to it. So that's pretty cool. Menus over on the right hand side, and that brings up things like, well, home wallpaper, you see there, quick links, weather demo. Let's have a look at a weather demo. There we go, full screen weather, and we can preview the other weather conditions. Full screen, raining with the windscreen wipers, snowing, intermittent clouds, windy, isn't that pretty, lightning, and also just cold, thunderstorms. Pretty cool. I wonder if they did that because either they wanted to show off all the different weather conditions, or else people were just trying to see all the ones that were included. So it's pretty cool. So that, as I say, is in menu, where we can enable location settings and all those other sorts of things. Now to go into the actual Windows start menu, we push the Windows button at the bottom. Pretty straightforward. Again, these buttons at the bottom are extremely sensitive because they are also capacitive, so you don't have to press them very hard. So they set up quite straightforwardly and quite sensitive. We do have the sort of standard honeycomb arrangement, as we've basically come to expect from Windows Mobile after 6.5 onwards. So we have honeycomb arrangement, which is pretty cool. Makes it a lot easier to actually find what you're looking for, and press it with one finger. Makes it more finger friendly. So in here we have a YouTube client, we have albums, games, marketplace, pretty straightforward, tools, calls, Facebook, Copilot. As I say, that is a 15-day trial of Copilot's installed. Facebook client's already installed, and Peep. Well, Peep's great, and I'm just going to go ahead and sign into Peep for the first time, so let me do that now. Incidentally, if you do want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Tracy and Matt, spelt with an E or without an E. Spelling it with an E is kind of more my personal account, and without the E is sort of more general. So, what are we doing? We'll just wait for that to update. Hopefully that won't take a moment. There we go. So that's my Twitter feed, so that's everybody that I'm following. This is anybody that's mentioned me, as you can see there. A few people that have mentioned me. My direct messages, which I'm not going to show you. And my favourites. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's everything there. Pretty cool. I like Peep. I think it works really quite well. And if I go back to the home screen, in fact, I go all the way over to here. We've got a Twitter feed there, which is shown there. I actually quite like that. As I mentioned, I said already, quite like Peep. I think it works really quite well. It's quite lightweight, but it does the job. It's unfussy. Pretty good. So let's go back into the start menu. Let's have a look at some of the other things we've got in here. Well, we better check out the camera. And well, I'm going to move the HD Mini's bigger brother in view, and I'm actually going to take a picture of the HD2. Take a picture. Let's grab that, and it's allowing me to take another. I won't bother to do. And we can actually go ahead and look in the photo albums. Actually, that's storage card. This is the photo album. There's our camera shots. This is the one I've just taken. And we can use 2 fingers to zoom, which is cool. There aren't too many Windows mobiles that you'd be able to do that with. So there we go, we can zoom in. Picture isn't bad, slightly grainy, but the lighting conditions aren't fantastic here for taking photos, because I've actually got it set up so that you can see the display, and we haven't got any direct lighting, which hopefully is a little better than some of our earlier videos. I'm sure we'll get some criticism anyway. But moving on, well, while I have it here, let's look at the 2 side by side, and well, you can see the difference, significant difference. In actual fact, on the front of the box, difference is also marked. So we have the HD, which isn't quite within the lines drawn on the box. And obviously we have the Mini that sits there, which is pretty cool, as you can see there. And well, they're a pretty similar thickness. Obviously this is a dummy unit, but I'm pretty impressed with the HD Mini, I have to say. I think it's pretty cool. In terms of weight, before I sort of move on and forget about it again, it's only 110 grams, which is pretty lightweight. The styling of the handset also means that it kind of feels nice, fits in your hand quite well, and yeah, it's not ever so heavy. 103, well, nearly 104 millimeters from top to bottom, just under 58 millimeters wide, and just under 11 or 12, no, just under 12 millimeters thick. So it's pretty cool. So moving on, let's go back into the home screen and we go back into the start menu. Oops, just need to unlock that. Next, the swipe to unlock. I'll just mention that quickly. To unlock, rather than having the swipe left or right along the top, we just pull the bottom bar down and that unlocks. We can go back into here. We can get into the settings menu this way again, but we'll get back in here. Let's just take a quick look at the YouTube client. And we'll see some few things on here. Let's do a quick search for Leo D. And there we go, it's come up with Leo D unboxing. As I say, my alter ego over on YouTube. And we can see some of our videos on there, which there are, well, more than 300, about 310 on there. Let's just pick one. Let's pick the Xperia X10 for now. Wait for that to quickly load. And it starts pretty quickly. As you can see there, plays back quite nicely. I must say, I think the display on the HD Mini is pretty damn good. And pretty impressive. It's not ever so huge, 3.2 inch, but it's generous enough to do the job. And it makes for a nice slim phone. And finally, well, let's go and actually have a look at Opera. I personally think that's the best browser. I don't particularly like IE. And let's go to acmat.co.uk and see how quickly that loads and renders. Well, pretty fast. As ever, I'm connecting obviously over Wi-Fi using a broadband connection, so load times not exactly as you would find them out in the field, as it were, with 3G, although comparable probably, because I live in a fairly rural area with reasonably poor connection. One thing that is evident with this display over some of the higher res displays is that you can't quite make out the text, even some of the larger text on the screen. I don't know if you can really make that out. You can't quite see the text on that display. You will have to absolutely, definitely zoom. It should rotate. There we go. Took a second or two, but there we go. If we rotate that way, well, you could probably get away with reading the text that way round. There's a little bit more screen real estate in terms of width. We can obviously zoom around or scroll around, see the whole site, and we can zoom in and out with two fingers, with pinch to pull and pull to zoom, and we can double tap, which zooms into an area, which also should in fact give us reflowed text, which is great. I think that's an excellent piece of technology, really, the reflow. So you can read bodies of text quite nicely and it reflows. Brilliant. So that works really quite well. Browser's pretty good. It is Opera. I think most people like and trust Opera as a browser. I think it works very well, does a fairly decent job. There are obviously plenty of other things that we can play with on here. Windows Live games, we can use it as a Wi-Fi router, calls, messaging, Facebook, Google Maps. We'll pop into the Google Maps just very quickly. And we'll accept that. Okay. And that also does support the pinch to zoom quite nicely. And it has just found my GPS location. And in the corner, I can set it to use satellite view. And well, we're in the middle of a field there, but we can zoom right in. And well, it's just Google Maps. It works very well. I think most people know what Google Maps is capable of. It does a pretty decent job, nothing to really complain about. I think we just ought to have a very quick look then at the keyboard. Let's go to compose a message. Obviously the keyboard works quite well that way round, and being again capacitive requires the softest of touch, which is quite nice. We can change the keyboard language if we want to in the corner, from English to Italian, French, German and so on. And obviously we have the shift functions, so make them in uppercase, and numeric on the other side. And if I rotate, we do get a landscape QWERTY keyboard. Makes the keys that bit bigger, and well, believe it or not, it works really quite nicely with 2 thumbs, despite, well, let's face it, a reasonably limited size of screen. Well, it's that way for a reason, but that works quite well. And well, we can also do attachments in the corner. We can attach music, we can attach the contact, we can attach messages and other bits and pieces, so it's pretty cool. Attach photos. So that is, well, a fairly quick tour of what the HTC HD Mini has to offer. There's plenty more below the surface. Those are just some of the key features of the handset. I think it's quite cool, pretty impressive, and if anybody's going to buy a Windows Mobile at the moment, I think this is probably one of the ones that you definitely want to have a look at. I like it already. I think it's quite a nice device. Not the first time I've seen it. I saw it just prior to the launch at Barcelona. I think it's rather a nice handset. So I'm going to be doing a full review. James is probably going to do the full review on this one because he loves it so much. So he's going to do the full review, but I'll have some more videos and some other bits and pieces for you. Don't forget, if you want to ask questions, please do so over on our forums on tracyandmatt.co.uk, or else, you know, through Twitter. If you want to follow me, Tracy and Matt, please post your Twitter comments. I'll be happy to answer your questions as best I can, and you know, get into conversation and debate with you over Windows Mobile and indeed the HD Mini. So we'll be back soon with some more videos and some more reviews on tracyandmatt.co.uk.